Sky! Aru! 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 Yeah! That's what I'm talking about, Spartan. Tell me you want to be safe. Be ready. Yes!
I wanted to review our participation at the Blue Mountain Trifecta weekend that was just held a few days ago in Blue Mountain, Ontario. Saturday morning, we were blessed. The weather was perfect. It was about 8 degrees in the morning, and then it went up to about 22 in the afternoon. A little hot in the afternoon, but if you were in the competitive early heats, you actually beat out the heat, and it was nice and comfortable. So to review the venue itself, the venue was perfect. On day one, the festival area was kind of very tight knit together. It was all on grass, it wasn't mud. A lot of venues you're just walking in mud and you almost need boots. You were walking on grass, you were staying clean at the venue site area. Regular sponsors were on site, Electrolyte, Rain Energy, and you had an abundance of other sponsors that were on site. You had the merch tent that was available that was close to the entrance. You had the info tent, all that good stuff that you would expect at a Spartan race. So love the festival area. Music was blasting, good music, good vibe in the festival area. From my understanding, over the 2 days, we had about 6,000 racers attend. 1,300 of those racers were actually Spartan kids, which 4 of my kids also did attend. Proud dad moment, my daughter did hit the podium in 3rd place, so very happy about that, about the 3 kilometer sprint kids competitive wave. So the Spartan Beast started. It was 21 kilometers long if you did not do any penalty loops, and it was up and down Blue Mountain 6 times. Which came out to around 1,400 to 1,500 meters of vertical, depending on your watch and your GPS reception. I would say that the first 2 climbs were decent. It was actually a very long time before you even hit the first obstacles. You were running a couple of kilometers before you hit the first obstacle. But then once you started hitting the obstacles, they were coming back to back to back. Thankfully, Olympus was at the very start of the race. I think it was obstacle number 2 for this weekend. So at least you had fresh grip strength. You could do Olympus, where it would hit you hard. I should probably look at the map and the placement of obstacles before I attend these events sometimes. I do look at them very cursory. I just want to see the elevation gain. I don't really look where the obstacles are. I just go and do my thing. But you would have Olympus, and then immediately afterwards, you would run literally 30 meters at best, and you were hitting twisters. So you're already exhausted from hitting Olympus. You would get through that, and then you're like, oh yeah, you're all pumped if you were successful. If you weren't successful, because I missed it on the open heat on the sprint, the penalty loop wasn't that bad. It was fairly short. There was a little bit of up and down, but it was actually very doable. Probably faster to do your penalty loop than to actually do Olympus if you're not very quick on it. But then you would be lambasted when you saw right afterwards, oh, I have to do twister now, which is another grip intensive obstacle. You know what? It was difficult, but I enjoyed it. That's why we go to Spartan races. It's to challenge ourselves and do hard things. So if it's hard for me, you know what? It's hard for all my competitors out there as well. So you did that. I would say the first 3 ups Blue Mountain were decent. You could run the majority of your ups. You could run the totality of your downs. Where it started getting difficult, and you were at about kilometer 12, if I remember properly, it's when you started with up number 4, 5, and 6. As we went throughout the race, the hills progressively became more and more vertical. I would argue that by the 6th up, we were probably going up in 65 to 70 degrees in some areas. You were power hiking, you were exhausted, and it was grinding. But what was even more difficult, in my opinion, is you're grinding up and you're power hiking and you're like, okay, well, at least I'll recover while I'm coming down the hill. But the down for the up 4 and 5 was so steep that you couldn't run. You were literally holding for dear life. You were coming down the mountain. At times I was coming down with my feet and kind of doing feet placement, and I could feel my bum touching the mountain behind me just because it was so steep that the angle, like the mountain's right there and you're just going down as safely as possible. The final down number 6, that was relatively runnable, so you could just open up and run towards the finish line. So that was good. Obstacle placement was amazing. We got to go into the village again this year. That is fantastic. You're in the village for close to 2 kilometers. It's fun. It's better than 70-degree angles for sure. You're on relatively flat land. There was a gauntlet of obstacles. You had the A-frame there. You had a Herc hoist. You had the rope climb. And then you went around. And then as you came out, if I remember properly, you had bucket carry. Completed that. Then you continued on. One of the shocking obstacles that was really hard this weekend, I've never failed the Z-wall. I think I failed it once because I slipped off with my shoe in 57 races now. This weekend, slip wall, 0 out of 3. Sorry, not slip wall, Z-wall, 0 out of 3. It was installed in an angle, so it's completely tilted. Every single wall where they built it wasn't straight, so they were all tilted to one side. And then meters before, I would say, for a stretch of about 100 to 150 meters, and there was no way of running beside it, you were running in flat out wet clay, which would stick to your shoes. You would get to Z-wall, and then your feet would just kind of slip off. So on the beast, I gave it an honest try, because knowing I usually don't fail this obstacle, I started it, and I think because of the declines that we were doing on all those downs, I literally had a humongous Charlie horse in my legs. So at that point, rather than pushing through a massive cramp event, and I was about a quarter into Z-wall, I just let it go. I did the penalty loop. Penalty loop was relatively short. Once again, I'm super slow on the Z-wall. I complete it. I'm slow. I don't know why. It's one of those, I would say it's my slowest obstacle in Spartan racing. The penalty loop was probably faster to run if you ran at a good pace than actually completing the Z-wall itself. So on day 2, I would give it an honest try, but when we did the super in the morning, so the super was 2.5 times up Blue Mountain. You were looking at about 750 meters of vertical, still significant elevation gain. However, you were doing essentially it was climbs 2 and 3 from the beast, which were relatively all runnable. You could run to the very top of the ski mountain, and then you could also run right back down. There was a nice portion that you're running in trails inside the wooded area. That was fantastic. For me, that is way better than running or power hiking up a ski hill where it's wide open and you can see a kilometer and a half of you, and you can see that, oh, well, I'm climbing for a while. I'd rather be in the woods, and even doing like slalom within the woods on probably BMX trails and just going my way up. I find mentally that is a lot easier. So once again, the super, if you left at an early heat, I'd say all your elites, all your age groups probably left early enough to avoid the rain. The open categories that started probably around 10:15, they got hit by rain, which changed the conditions at the mountain. Super went well, missed again. The super, I was fatigued. I had to tape both knees. My knees were shot. I think it's just from overuse from having ran the Sudbury Backyard Ultra 2 weeks before, which I made it to 110 Ks and then DNF'd, thinking I need to perform at Blue Mountain. I think it was a good call at that point. But from overuse on day 1, both knees were hurting tremendously to the point of making me tear up in the eyes. So day 2, with the advice of some of my friends, I taped it up with both knees with KT tape. I could still feel the pain, but it was kind of basically being held on. And with the pressure, it didn't feel nearly as bad as day 1. So day 2, I went in with 0 expectations. If I came in top 10, I was happy. I really didn't care. My A race was the beast, which I came in 2nd place. Still raced. I raced hard. I led the front for the first few kilometers, and then I was passed by one person who wasn't even in my age group. So I just let him go, ran my own race, and came in second overall in my heat. And ultimately, I came in second overall in my age group. To touch that, this year's racing format, I personally didn't enjoy it. So you could, if you were age group, you could essentially register to any heat time. There's 3 or 4 heats, and you're leaving at 7:15, 7:30, 7:45. So there's probably 3 heats for the age group. Thing I disliked is like for the super, same for the beast, I was the first place person in my own age group. And I knew that because always, if I don't know who's passing me, I will ask them, hey, how old are you? And if they are not in my age group and they decide to pass me because they're either younger, on occasion they're older, I won't chase. I'm going to keep doing my thing. But if I know you're in my age group, that's when I'm going to accelerate and just make it harder on you and to try to maintain the lead. What they did this year is you could pick anytime. So I picked my actual legit age group, which was a 7:15 a.m. start. Some of my competitors would pick 7:30 or 7:45. So when you reach the finish line, you'd be in first place when you check the results, either on your phone or at the results stand. Oh, perfect, first place. But you need to wait a half hour for the second heat that left after you to complete their race to see if you're still in first place. It's a Spartan race, not a race against yourself. So my opinion on this is, well, I should see who my competitors are. I should be on the same start line, and I should be able to decide if yay or nay I'm pushing harder to follow them, to either follow them, create a gap with them. There's racing strategy. During my beast, at some point I'm like, okay, I'm in second place overall in my age group right now. First place overall in my age group, and I'm second in our entire heat. Someone that was younger was ahead of me by a couple of minutes. I made the educated decision that, okay, I'm going to pull it off a bit, try to keep some juice in the tank for the super tomorrow morning, and that cost me first place. On day two I was pretty broken. So, but on day 2, I did give it 110%. Probably had in some areas, especially on downhills, I could have pushed slightly faster, but I was literally in first place in my age group in that wave, and then got to the finish line, super happy, had a strong race, shockingly, and then I look at the results, first place, perfect, but then half an hour later, look at the results again, and then I was second place, beat out by a minute and a few seconds. Person who beat me, congratulations. I have the utmost respect for you, enjoy racing with you. But my gripe is not with the racer himself. He's playing within the rules. The gripe is with, we should all be leaving at the same time so we know who's there and we can compete fairly. I could have definitely pushed that minute and something seconds faster throughout a 10K course and taken first. But that's a little semantics. It is what it is. It's a preference for me, and I'm sure, well, actually speaking with others in other age groups, they had similar stories as well. So Spartan, take note. We would like that if you're in, like I'm in the 40 to 44 category, we would like for all 40 to 44 people to run together. And same thing for every single different age group, so we can control our own race. That's what made Spartan fun in previous years, is you knew you hit that finish line, and then you knew that you were you either won or you were down. So it's always stressful if someone comes in third place, and it's not uncommon from the first heat. Oh, I'm in third place. I hope I stick it out, and everyone gets bumped down by one position from a later heat, and then usually third place becomes fourth, if not fifth, and they lose their podium, right? And then simultaneously, it's a little bit more challenging or less challenging if you're a later heat, in my opinion, because you've had more racers go on the course and just tap it down. And the course is way easier. It's way more visible. You're not bushwhacking weeds. You know exactly where you're going. There's less odds that you're going to get lost because you can see the trails from previous racers. So you can just do your course. So that's my 2 cents on it. Where the event changed is for the Spartan sprint. It was 5K, one time up the mountain and then one time down. Obviously less obstacles, 25 obstacles. It had about 250 meters of vertical and it was pouring rain. Spartan can't help that. Mother Nature decides if it's raining or not. We were definitely doing more of a Tough Mudder than a Spartan. I completed it. I wanted my Trifecta weekend medal, which most age groupers who are serious pretty much do all 3 races on the weekend to get that special medal, right? So we went out. I personally was miserable during that race. I was hurting from the first 2 races. It was pouring rain. It was super slick. The clay was slippery. It wasn't quite 2023 slippery, but when we were up the mountain and then the barbed wire crawl was muddy on day 1. Now it was just ridiculously clay. You were rolling across the barbed wire, and the last little portion was a significant grade. So I was rolling, and you would roll up the grade, but then because of the clay, you would kind of slide back down. So you had to kind of roll and then jam your foot in the ground with your cleats to not fall right back down, and then you could clear it. Anything grip related, I had opened up my hand on the monkey bars on the super. So anything grip related, I had 0 grip strength. Add to that it was raining, so all your bars and stuff, your monkey bars, your multi-rig, your anything bar related was ultra slick. So anything bar related, I made a very non-genuine attempt. I'd grab the monkey bars, get off, because my hand was hurting too much. And then I would go do my penalty loop, and then I would go back out. I essentially walked my whole sprint. Not the Spartans' fault whatsoever. Mother Nature chose another path. Where these types of scenarios are unfortunate is I think I did 14 races this year, so I know that's not the norm. The concern for me is if you're an occasional racer and this was either your first race ever, or you just want to do one trifecta and you just pick that race for this weekend, it's a little bit disheartening when you're basically walking the mountain and then you're slipping sliding down, right? So the risk of injury was high. And then most obstacles, to be quite frank, everyone was running penalties. Z-wall, everyone was going to the penalty loop. Monkey bars, I took the penalty. Most people were taking the penalty. It was beyond damp. It was downpour. We were fortunate that there was no lightning at that point, so they didn't pull anyone off the course. Not sure if they did later in the day. I stayed till about 2:30 p.m. on site, and people were still racing. However, very dark clouds were coming in at that point. So that was my review of the Spartan race. Another gripe, and I've mentioned this before at every single venue, same gripe, no changes, is your podium times. We need to do better. So if you're racing elite or competitive age group, like on the Beast, we were all done by 10 a.m. Anyone who's podiuming was done 10, maybe 10:30 for those who started in later heats. The podiums were at 1:30. That's a 3-hour wait. And when you do a Beast, the only thing you want to do afterwards is you want to go home, you want to shower, first of all, and then you want to foam roll, maybe do some spin bike to shake out that lactic acid. You want to start the recovery process. But because you're waiting 3 hours for podiums, now you're stuck at the venue. I usually hang out at the info tent and help out Haley and just speak with other Spartan racers. I enjoy doing that, but I'm still on my feet. I'm not recovering. I'm waiting for podiums. And then for the National Age Group Series podiums, surprisingly, great job, Spartan. The Deltas were there for those who won the Canadian National Series. I put mine here. Love it. But that was even later. It was at 2:30 p.m. So once again, I recommend that podium awards be done sooner, because at the end of the day, they're trying to wait for people to be done. But at the end of the day, if you look at the crowd for the podiums, whether it's elite, age group, it's always the same. The people who win the podiums are the people who are the bulk people in that crowd. You're going to have the winners of all the age categories. You're going to have either their spouses, their support crews, their friends, their immediate people, and that's it. you're not getting the open racers who are coming specifically to come see the podiums. So I would ask again, please consider making the podiums a little earlier, just to make sure that we can go home or back to our Airbnb and start recovering. It was the same thing in Tremblant. I waited 3 or 4 hours after an ultra. Definitely throws your recovery process completely in whack. And finally, I'd like to touch on the Sunday, you had the Elite 5K National Series for the Elite racers at 7 a.m. They went off, and 15 minutes later, you had the Elite 10K Non-National Series go. So you were diluting the fields because there's not a lot of elite racers. We've gone back to the old model, so the elites are fairly sparse, and you kind of divided the two races in between two groups of people, and then it also diluted slightly the age group racers because now we had 3 choices to pick, right? Oh, do I do the 5K National Series? Competition's going to be a lot more fierce on that one. Strategically, if I wasn't injured and I wasn't taped up like a mummy, I would have gone into the Elite Super race, knowing that the field was a little lighter and your odds of podiuming were greater than the norm. That would have been my strategy personally. But yeah, and then you had all the age groups coming out afterwards. So I appreciated the extra 15 minutes of sleep that day. But I would recommend that a lot of people, especially your elite racers who are elite throughout the season, would have preferred to race both races elite. So you could have done the 10K Super Elite at 7, make them complete the race, and then maybe at 11, send them back out, do that 5K Super at the elite level, and truly find out who your best elite is, who's grinding it out, right? So yeah, those are my recommendations. Overall, very much enjoyed my weekend. I would give my weekend I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I can't fault Spartan for the weather and the rain that is not out of their control. Registration was fantastic, way quicker than usual. When it did start to rain, they pulled us all into the building to at least protect us pre-race from the rainstorm. Registration was good, the venue was good. There was 2 food trucks, both fantastic. Prices are a little pricey. However, that's what you get at a ski hill, right? You expect to pay premium top dollar for food on site. So no, enjoyed my weekend, 10 out of 10. Great job, Spartan. Overall, you had one hiccup, which was in Brimacombe. You had no awards on site. You quickly rectified that and sent everyone their awards by not by mail, actually. You gave them to us in Tremblant, which is very much appreciated. And for the remainder of the season, you had your headbands, you had your awards in check. So great 2025 season. Can't wait to see what 2026 will bring. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.